Welcome to Meeting the Inconceivable, a podcast exploring Zen koans, dreams, and the creative life produced by Pacific Zen Institute. Pacific Zen has a legacy of preserving and reimagining the koan tradition to meet our own times. With a lively community of artists, innovators, and seekers of all kinds that extends worldwide, our mission is to create a culture of transformation through meditation, koans, the arts, and conversations about the deepest matters. In this episode, Roshi John Tarrant dives into a collection of koans featuring great Yun men, beginning with Case 86 from the Blue Cliff Record, in which Yun men taught, "Everyone has a light inside, but when you try to see it, you can't. It's dark, dark, dim. What is this light that everybody has?" Then he himself answered, "The kitchen pantry, the temple gate." Then again he said, "It's better to have nothing than something good." Investigating how we find our way in the dark, in the face of great difficulties, diagnoses, and disasters. Tarrant tells a number of interwoven awakening stories from the Blue Cliff, revealing how even the blows of life, even the blunders, carry the great light of awakening.
Here we are, and we've always been here. So we're in the middle of the Blue Cliff Record. We ourselves are under the Blue Cliff with Yun men and Yun men's friends, and we are all those people. The Blue Cliff is still being written, and we are helping out with that project. So it's very nice. The Dharma is not something that happened there and then. It's something that's unfurling and unrolling in your own heart and your own mind. And actually, in your finger, your little finger, your thumb, your nose, all around, if you look around the room, you're in the Blue Cliff. This is your temple of the Blue Cliff. And it's shocking, really. Why weren't we informed earlier? It's like so many problems disappear when you realize you're already in the temple. And anything, no doubt, anything that you perceive as a problem the universe will have to work that out for you because you're too busy being in the temple, meditating, discovering koans, all of that. So I want to say a couple of things like relevant to the course we've been on. And this is like Yun men's koan, one that sort of we use a lot, or I use a lot anyway. Yun men, everyone has a light inside. When you try to see it, you can't. The darkness is dark, dark. What is your light? What is the light that everyone has? What is my light? And then later on he answered for himself. He said, the kitchen storeroom, the temple gate. So if you look around your room, the temple, the bookshelf, the refrigerator, the bed, whatever's in your temple, the dog toy, the cat's tail whisking out of sight. Then later on he said it's better to have nothing than to have something good. It's kind of a famous saying and really interesting. And I want to talk a little bit about the group of people, involved in all this. We're involved in something, and they were involved in something as a group. People discovered people have often discovered when they're doing important projects, they're much better done in a group of people. The Blue Cliff Record was like that. Chan Zen is like that, really. That's why we have a kind of marvelous collection of teachers. Saying to somebody today, in high schools and grade schools, they're always talking about student-teacher ratios. We have an awesome student-teacher ratio. and we know that. And we think that the conversations themselves bring something out, and you repeat something and you say it in a different way, and somebody else says the same thing you're saying, but they say it in a different way, so it becomes alive differently. And here's another great Yunmen koan. It's just kind of the same thing. He says, you come and go by daylight. You make people out by daylight. Okay, fair enough. Things look clear. But suddenly it's midnight and there's no sun, no moon, no lamp. If it's a place you've been, then of course it might be possible. But if it's a place you've never been, how will you get hold of something? So, all his koans are sort of, there's these silvery threads connecting them all, The mycelium underneath is like talking. And here's another one of his that's kind of, in the center of the cosmos, inside heaven and earth, there's one treasure hidden in the body of things, body of form, and hidden in the body. There's also it's the body is all this, Look around the room again. That's your body, Konyi Yunmen. If that makes you want to tidy up the off-camera bits more or not, but it's yours. It says there's one treasure in the midst of the cosmos. There's one treasure hidden in the body. Coughs. It picks up a lantern and walks into the meditation hall. Okay. It's a beautiful image. You pick up the lantern. It's late. You turn on the flashlight function on your phone and you walk into the meditation hall. It brings the entrance gate. That's the same entrance gate. He couldn't have entered the entrance gate, apparently, but it was a huge feature. The temple, it had 3 stories. In one of the stories, usually there were either the mummies or the ashes of ancient abbots, the relics of the ancient masters and the people who contributed to the temple. It was kind of interesting if you were, and you went to interview past them, It picks up a lantern and walks into the meditation hall. It brings the great entrance gate and puts it on top of the lantern. So suddenly we see, the entrance gate is this vast structure. So it's like saying, it brings the Chrysler building and puts it on top of your phone. So you're starting to see that in the world, you can move around. And if this is your true face, you look around the temple at people's faces, that's your true face. But then if you look around at the walls and the door and your flower arrangement and out the window, that's your light and your true face too. So Yunmen, you can tell there's a kind of thread through Yunmen where he said, there is this light, and we'll call it light. But sometimes when you're in the dark, it might be good because you've taken away the things you think of the light and you're leaning on, So how do you find your way in the dark? And there's a treasure in all that. There's a light in all that. And you'll find sometimes deep in retreat, you have these flashes of wisdom and intelligence, and you think, wow, it's kind of nice. Nice work when you can get it, a little illumination, and it's a real thing, and you can feel that. But then, I don't know, something else happens. I don't know, you trip, you hurt yourself, you lose your temper, you get mad with somebody. Well, I don't know what's your thing. One of my things is technical breakdowns. I'm just going on and my computer crashes. So I fix my computer, the server crashes. So I fix the server, it crashes my computer again. Yeah, so it's like, oh, it brings a great triple gauge and puts it on the land. It brings the server, it brings the computer, and so it's rather nice to the joy is in that too. It's not there, yeah. And if you're late too early, it's there. The light is there, yeah. So it's kind of fun. So to be able to enjoy that was kind of fun, you know. Took me a while actually with things back down on me a lot. It's like one of those things. And it's the light itself. So, but it's in the, you can tell, oh, if you can make things out in daylight, the things you expect to be the light, the eyes of the children, yeah, the loving note from the friend, was beautiful. And it reaches out to the stars. But what about the time when you think, oh, it's hard and it's painful and somebody I love is in trouble or dying, or I'm dying? As Lingyun said, this is not a place we can stay for long. I'm reading a great book about freedom in the body. It's the story of Susan Sontag, who, kept getting cancer, and she was cured of one cancer by chemotherapy, which 20 years later gave her another cancer, the chemo. And the author says this great thing. She knew everybody dies, but she was thinking she might be an exception. And so we've got to take that into account too. We are not here for long, and so it's got to be in the midst of that. It's not going to be when everything's perfect and my diet is right and my workout regimen is right and my body works and whatever it is, and I please my audience or whatever the thing is, And then we realize, like the light, it doesn't depend on any of those things. You could be dying. Your audience could hate you, which is very helpful if you're a leader. And here you are. Your light is here. Your light doesn't ever diminish or get reduced. It just doesn't, And isn't that grand, It doesn't go anywhere. And it doesn't have a particular shape. So if the universe has one shape today, doesn't mean it has to have that same shape tomorrow. If there's one idea today, it doesn't have that. I need that idea tomorrow. You kind of know that, but notice how the mind always, you think, wow, I got it. It's in the darkness too. And then you're holding on that and cutting this idea around. It's like the old metaphor among the old teachers, a board carrying person. You're carrying a board and you can't see. You see to one side. And so I want to do a linkage here. There's Yunmen's theme of like, you could see that he could see it in everything. You could always see it. So he had an attendant, and the attendant, for 18 years, every day, he'd ask the attendant, what is it? And the attendant would try everything. And Yunmen never believed him. And he didn't argue because he knew Yunmen was right. And it's not like Yunmen didn't understand his virtue or anything like that. But this attendant stayed. Unlike Yuan Wu, who when his teacher didn't believe him, he got huffy and had a fit and left. But that was Yuan Wu's light. Yunmen's attendant's light was this other thing. So where he would try, and he was an eloquent, brilliant person, so he'd try the most beautiful things. He'd write poems, he'd quote the scriptures, he'd say simple things, he'd shout. And then one day he said, I got it. And Yunmen said, so tell me. And he still couldn't. But in a way, that was the shift of everything. And sometimes you'll notice that you can tell you're in the passage or you've got something and it was real, but you can't say it yet, and you don't need to say it, and that's all right. In fact, even if you never get to say it, that's all right too. But it's nice to know that the light starts, the force of the Dharma starts carrying, I suppose. I think of the light staining us upwards. We think of light descending, but sometimes I think of it as coming upwards out of the dark. It carries us and sustains us. So Yun Man had a bunch of teachers, and was a notably brilliant person. He created wonderful legends, like one of his teachers foretold his coming as head of practice, and he would say he always kept the head of practice quarters empty in his temple. And he said, "My head of practice was born today." Things like that. "My head of practice is now a child tending the cows." Things like that. And then eventually people got pretty skeptical of it, thought this was a sort of rhetorical device. And one day Yun Men arrived and he was shown to the head of practice. God, it's rather a nice story. "There's always a head of practice quarters waiting for you." Waiting for you. Yeah. In fact, if you look around your room again, this is what it looks like. You've already been shown. You're already in Yun Men's temple and been shown. So, anyway, the person who's really valuable to Yun Men, I think, one was this person, Mu Zhou. Mu Zhou, when Yun Men met him, was a very, very old person. He was about 100, and he'd sort of retired, and he was the head of the temple, 80 years or 70 years before in another place. And Linji had come to that temple, and great Linji. And you could tell Linji was interesting, but he was intense, and he just never asked for an interview with the teacher. And so Mujo said, "Well, hey, teacher, could help." And Linji said, "Well, I just don't know what to ask." And he said, it doesn't really matter, But he gave him a question to ask. What is the clearly manifested reality of the Dharma? Something like that. I keep forgetting this and making up a different one each time. So if you go and check, you'll find it. It might have changed in the book, but the one I'm telling you is the right one. What is the clearly manifested essence of the Buddha Dharma? And so he went to the teacher and the head of practice was sitting along, and pushed him in the door, and he said this to the teacher, and the teacher looked at him incredulously, hit him, boom, and not necessarily very hard, but you never know. And the teacher was really big, so Wang Bo, and so Rinji went away and thought about this and meditated some more and said, "Well, shouldn't give up easily." And he went and again knocked on the door, was again given admission, said, "What is the clearly manifested essence of the Buddha Dharma?" The teacher went whack. And so on Linji, the same thing happened. Then Linji thought a bit more. He said, "Well, 3 times the charm." And he went in and went in again, knock, knock. And the thing about Wang Bo is he stuck to his guns, and Linji stuck to his, said, "What is the clearly manifested essence?" And so Linji went back, and Mujo dropped in and said, "How'd it go?" He said, "Well, I don't know, 3 times I asked him, and 3 times he hit me, and I think maybe my karma's not with this place. My affinity is not here." Which can be true. And he said, "Well, why don't you go in and let the teacher know that you're leaving, and ask his advice." And so then he went around the back door and spoke to the teacher and said, "I think he's got something, this guy, and he's going to leave, so just giving you a heads up." And so Wang Po said, well, you should go straight to this other teacher." And so he went to the other teacher, and the other teacher said, "Well, what's up?" And he's told what had happened with Wang Po. And Wang Bo said, we told what happened with Wang Bo, and the other teacher said, Wang Bo exerted all his kindness like a grandmother with you. He kept receiving you and helping you, and you ask whether you were at fault or not. And this suddenly, Linji has this big awakening, and the new teacher said, "What do you see?" And he said, "Oh, there's not much. After all, there's not much to Wang Bo's Dharma." And he said, Peter tried to hit him, and he hit him back, and things like that. It was sort of funny. And he said, "You're none of my business. Get out of here. You belong back for the Wang Bo." So Muzhou had a part in that great story, a famous and amusing story. But it's a kind of story that you will find happens here. You'll find that people have their awakening stories just like that. And someone's just walking, they're in a session, and they're walking and they smelled urine in the toilet. And they begin to think, hang on, there's something here, that's got something to do with the light, that smell. That's got a great. And they don't say, I don't know, I think I'd rather have gardenias, actually. It's what it is, or somebody here running for her life, debris flow, suddenly, feels the greatness of the light and the peace and so on. And another friend is walking, meditating, and sort of walks in the door, and the phone is ringing. Didn't have a cell phone, but there was a landline ringing, and he lurches towards it, staggers, hits his head, and suddenly, oh, that's what the koan no is about. So it's always happening, and if the teacher Wang Bo doesn't provide the blow, life does. And but the thing I want to say about Muzhou is that Muzhou's karma was not to become some famous, he had this tremendous gift and people respected him, but his mother was sick and they were really tight and close, and he cared a lot about his family. And so he sort of retired and went to live in the village near his mother and made straw sandals for people. And sometimes, and he'd put them, people would wear out their sandals being on pilgrimage, wandering around, a vast land. Bad stuff can happen to your footwear. And so he would make the sandals and secretly put some out for the pilgrims. But also, he would sell them and make a living and things like that. And so, but he had a little, people would come and visit him and knock on his hermitage, and mainly he wouldn't let them in. But the legend was he would listen to the sound of their footsteps and think, nah, I don't know about that one. We don't know if that was true or not. We just know that was the story. But anyway, one day, Yun Men finally gets in and he knocks. And he's knocked before, the door didn't open, he knocks this time. Suddenly the door opens and this little old, 100-year-old guy just grabs him like this and looks up at him and says, "Speak, speak." And Yun Men goes, "My heart is not at ease," he says, which is beautiful. It's like, isn't that kind of nice? When that's true, whatever you're worried about, that's the expression of it, isn't it? My heart is not at ease. I'm running for my life. My heart, I have terminal cancer, but it's really whether my heart is at ease or not. Yeah. There's nowhere that the light does not penetrate, so it doesn't really matter what the circumstances are. I mean, it kind of matters, and it's interesting. It's more fun not to be running for your life. But I don't know, it can be fun to be running for your life. It can be fun if you give a talk, everybody hates it. So all of that is okay. But the light is the thing. And so he says, my heart is not at ease. And Mujo's got him like this. And he just throws him out the door like that. And Yunmen naturally overbalances because, he's like this reverend ancient master who was involved with Lingy and all. And he just sort of falls over backwards and the door slams. And Yunmen has a great awakening. And so you can tell that things get handed along. From one person to another, to another, to another. And Mujo had this, himself was not a notable teacher and so on, but he had a hand in things. He handed along to Linji and great Yunmen. And then Yunmen said things like there was one treasure hidden in the body, or everyone has their own light. That means, who does that mean? Anybody in this temple? Who in your part of the temple could he possibly be referring to? Do you need to change who you are before that is true? Do you need to be less fat? Do your jeans need to be cooler? Do you need a better job? This is great. This is somebody who I'm kind of fond of came to me today and said, 8 years ago or something, she said, I came to you and I said, well, I don't have a relationship. I'm not going to marry, and I don't really this and that, and all I have is a cat. And I said, at least you have a cat, and that's the light, right? So then apparently she lost her cat, and then I told her, get a cat. So it's like, it's the light, right? And that's what, that little tail whisking out of the corner of the temple window we see sometimes, things like that. That's the light too. And so you can tell it takes infinite shapes, It tinkles, turning like a jade jewels, as the old saying. Everywhere you look, it's available, like the sound of the bells at night, that I had a practice with is making for us for the closing ceremony. The whole universe is in those sounds. It's the multiplicity of the world of form showing the light. And everything you run into is like that. And so after a while, I kind of, and then the mind just makes its complaints. And you don't have to stop that either. Or some people's thoughts are just tremendously powerful. Some people are just really thinkers. And that's fine. Be a thinker if that's what you are. And then you notice your mind will come up with these brilliant thoughts. And that's like the sound of the birds or the cool wind in your face. And that's all right. It's beautiful, And then you'll notice you start bowing down towards one thought. The light is really in the difficult things, something like that. And you realize, nope, that's just another horseshit rule. No, and it doesn't really matter. Sometimes the light is in the easy things, sometimes in the bright things, sometimes it's in the dark thing, sometimes in my little finger, sometimes in the palm of my hand. So, I don't know. The Chuedo's verse to the treasure hidden in the body, I just wanted to share that because it's so great. He said, the water, vast and boundless, white flowers in the moonlight you must see for yourself. Yeah, it's moonlight now. We still have a big moon. Earlier, in just a month or two ago, I could see, when I sat in the moonlight, I could see the white irises with this blaze in the moonlight. It's like the light of the Dharma, It was like they were getting dressed for a wedding, this great. So, white flowers in the moonlight you must see for yourself. Okay. All right, I'll do that. Fair enough. And then Yuan Wu is not very helpful. He says, when you see them, you'll go blind. And you see how in the Blue Cliff, as soon as you grab something, say, let it go and you'll be free. Yeah. Let it go and you'll be free. Bright moon reflects the white flowers, as John Morgan, and white flowers reflect the bright moon. At this moment, tell me, what realm is this? So, yeah, surely there's something. I think that, there's a lot of stuff in the teachings about trusting the moment, trusting the darkness, trusting yourself. So if you look in your own heart right now, what are you thinking and what are you feeling? Just notice that. Well, what if you trust that? And if you look around your room, you realize this is a room of the great temple, right? This is an adjunct of the temple that not only goes way out to New York and Knoxville and the Sierras and Oakland and Michigan and Sri Lanka and lots of other places, Colorado, Seattle. So it goes out there, but that seems like ungenerous. It goes farther than that, doesn't it? Yeah. And it, into the darkness and into what you think of as your sorrow, or what you think of as your regret, or what you think of as your failure. Yeah. And if you don't even have a cat, it's in that. and something loves you, and it's the light in you is always there. Yeah. So anyway, and so then you don't, in a way, you're. One thing to notice is whatever comes is coming for you, and so it's okay, and receive the gift. It's not. I don't think it's that hard, actually. You notice all these invitations to go off and approve and disapprove of all these things about your life and other people's lives, and it's kind of fun. But it's the light opens out everything infinitely, and I suppose we could say it's more fun. But it's also it's more accurate is the thing. It's more true, And it's not about whether it feels good or not. I don't know. I don't care about my opinions about what other people feel and think, because I don't care about my opinions about what I feel. It's the light, the light, the light. So I don't know. I started late, courtesy of my karma with objects. So I guess we need to just stop. And wherever you are, like just for a second, just again, look at your hand. Yeah. Yeah. Let me chicken chip. Look at your hand. Yeah. Look at the other side of your hand. What you might notice is not conceivable, but it does everything. Yeah. The light is not conceivable, but wherever you are, you're in it, and wherever you are, it is in you. And it is always manifesting and flowering. And then gradually we learn to be more skillful at things. Maybe we learn to receive the gift we couldn't receive. That's one of the great things. And if we're greedy and grabbing at things, it's because we're not good at receiving the gift. And if we're stingy and uptight, it's because we're not good at receiving the gift. But it's not that we're not good at those things. It's just we forgot, the light is here too. In the inconceivable. It's carrying us and it's bigger than us.
We walk around inside this great way, this vast refuge right here with walls and flowers, computers and bodies, in which the heart mind finds ease and wonder, even without ever leaving the demon realm. John said way earlier, all the galaxies are represented in your consciousness right now. Here, this evening's talk was punctuated by rolling thunder and bursts of rain. Not sure which is picking and choosing and which is just not liking cilantro? No worries. When we try to get clear about it, we can end up pretty tired. And you can tell it's not the light. It's confining and eats energy for lunch. But a refuge is a place undisturbed where you can live naturally. Bodhidharma's in a world where the Dharma is naturally pure or one, describes this place. And we know it to be our home and no other place but here. The ancestors, our wonderful collection of odd adventurers in the Tao, whisper right into our hearts. And so do our companions, hoo. The delicacy of the flower moon in early summer is something you can drink from. And even the highway towards night is more relaxed. And with the ease of muscles relaxed and heavy at rest on a branch or on a bed, the days picking and choosing, the many experiments of the day have exhausted themselves. You can lie back on the river, under the river, and let it take you into the dark. What is it to be you among the galaxies tonight? The temple gets very, very large. And the things right near at hand hold a kind of dearness, of tenderness. Your slippers, the toothbrush, the alarm clock. We call on the protectors to smile over us. The work is being done through us in the night. We rest and trust.
To support these episodes or learn more about upcoming programs and retreats at Pacific Zen Institute, visit us at pacificzen.org. You'll find details on John Tarrant's Sunday talks, our Open Temple morning meditation, and our Zen Luminary series featuring intimate conversations with scholars, poets, and teachers of koan Zen. Thanks for listening.